The bill ensures the Commonwealth is on the right course in developing the plan by requiring the DEQ to prepare a report that has to consider 4 key things. First, the disproportionate effects of electricity and other energy price increases on any household in Virginia, regardless of income. Number 2, any direct and indirect employment effects, positive or negative, and jobs that could be lost within the affected sectors. Number 3, the impacts on economic development, including manufacturing, commercial, and other sectors that are heavily energy reliant. And number 4, the overall competitive position of the Commonwealth in relation to neighboring states, something that's particularly important in our part of the state where we're within an hour of West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina at any given time. And I personally think it's important that the Commonwealth's plan to implement the final rule be developed with as much involvement and as many people as possible. And as people who represent the general public at large, I feel like that we have a duty to weigh in on that and to see what the final product is going to be. And I know that there are people who may say we're trying to circumvent some sort of executive prerogative. And I would say to that actually in the rule as proposed by the EPA itself, it says that the EPA recognizes that some states may need more than 1 year to complete all the actions needed, including technical work, state legislative and rulemaking activities, coordination with third parties, etc. So I think that in our part of Virginia, and we've heard all these bills today, where people are sensitive about the rates that we're paying, the rates that we may have to pay, how this, that, or the other may affect the Commonwealth and our competitiveness going forward. And I think that in Southwest Virginia, we certainly want to be particularly careful with what any of these proposed rules might do. This rule certainly has the high potential to create job loss, higher utility bills, and negatively impact our economy overall.
All right. Any member have any questions of the delegate? I would say that, do you really want an emergency clause on that? I would advise to take that off. 80. Yes. I would take it as a friendly amendment if you take the emergency clause.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. If I may, we had filed identical versions in the House and Senate. For whatever reason, the Senate version had an emergency clause, but you can take it off.
Did the Senate version rank pass with the
I think it, Mr. Chairman, I think it's very
Hasn't been us. Okay. I would entertain a motion to take it up.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I would just say it's a lot easier to take it off later than just add it later.
Okay.
But,
All right.
I mean, if you got to make a motion, make a motion.
All right. Any body to speak in favor of the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Donnie Ratliff with Alpha Nest Resources. The delegate did an outstanding job explaining the bill, and all I would add is this puts the framework in place to go forward on how we deal with 111D, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Ronnie Dunn with the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Going a little bit longer, we appreciate Delegate O'Quinn carrying this bill. The EPA's proposal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from existing power plants, known as the Clean Power Plan, is unlike any other emissions control program ever put forward by regulators. Clean Power Plan is unique and unprecedented in that it as much is about energy policy as it is about environmental regulation. And that's the key here. The generation and retail provision of electricity has been the prerogative of state governments since the passage of the 1935 Federal Power Act. The lawyers, was the premise of the notion on that electric utility is a local institution and should be locally controlled. As a result, the state's response to this plan must be an out-of-the-box, unique strategy. That's why we're here with you today to talk about this bill. This bill ensures those economic competitive issues that Delegate O'Quinn touched on. The effects of electric rates, any direct and indirect employment effects, impacts on economic development, including manufacturing, commercial, and other sectors. The overall competitiveness of the Commonwealth is something that we must consider when implementing any plan we send to the EPA. The Virginia Chamber and its 22,300 members feel that the Commonwealth's plan to implement the final rule be developed with as much involvement from the public as possible. Absent involvement from the legislature, which is the branch of government that speaks for its citizens, these crucial policy decisions will have been driven solely by federal executive order and court settlements. We urge you to sponsor this bill and pass it on. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Nicole Riley with the National Federation of Independent Business, and we represent about 5,500 small business owners. We see this legislation as common sense legislation that would help ensure that Virginia's plan, while complying with EPA's emission rule, would do so without creating undue hardship or jacking up rates for small business owners and other working Virginians. The cost of energy remains a top concern of small business owners who rely on affordable energy to operate their businesses successfully. In our recent Small Business Problems and Priorities Survey, it found that 35% of respondents cite energy costs as a critical issue to their business. This new proposal makes it likely that small businesses will see substantial increases in their electricity bill. NFIB estimates that the average small business user will see an increase of over $500 in their annual bill. NFIB is concerned that the rule will substantially affect the availability of affordable electricity for small businesses, and therefore we think it makes sense the General Assembly have an opportunity to review the impact of the Commonwealth State Implementation Plan prior to submitting it to the EPA for approval. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Clark Lewis representing the Virginia Coal and Energy Alliance. We likewise support the bill. We believe that all stakeholders, the General Assembly, should have a full and active role in evaluating the state's implementation plan. We support the bill and appreciate the patience. Thank you.
Delegate Feb.
Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, when this goes to my comments about the emergency clause, there's really no reason for this to be controversial. All this is saying is when the state comes up with its plan to comply with the new federal regulations, the legislature plays a role in that. So to me, anybody on the legislature who votes against this bill is saying we don't need to exist, we'll just let whoever the executive may be. The next executive might rewrite the whole plan in a way that they don't like. So to me, this is not a bill about federal regulations and the impact on us. It's us having a say in the federal regulations and how they impact us. So to me, anybody who vote, frankly, if you vote against this, you ought to just give up your seat because you're just handing everything over to the governor's office. So I move to report.
Well, okay. Haven't heard who's opposed. Yes.
Thank you. Walton Shepard of the Natural Resource Defense Council, speaking on behalf of over 3,000 members in the Commonwealth. Thank you for your service and your attention tonight. I'm glad you've been fed. It's going to be a pizza night for me, too. Virginia will soon be almost 80% of the way to the proposed carbon pollution reduction goal under the Clean Power Plan due to already planned changes to clean up our power mix. As for the remaining 20%, I would love to bet anyone that not a single coal plant will be closed in order to meet the rest of the goal, because that would be absolutely absurd and unnecessary. Instead, the remaining 20% of the carbon pollution reduction due by 2030, by the way, 15 years from now, could be achieved by building out our currently very modest energy efficiency, solar, and wind energy industries. Those are cheap, zero fuel cost energy sources, which Virginia is very far behind its neighbors, every one of its neighbors. To the rates being raised question.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Question for the gentleman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the testimony. We heard all of it during the Coal and Energy Commission when we heard about the Clean Power Plan. I think most of us are very familiar with you and the people behind you, what they're going to say about why they support the Clean Power Plan and how easy it is to comply with.
Sure.
The question is, all this bill says is that the DEQ plan should come to us for approval, and here's how they should prioritize it. So, putting aside the comments we heard before, what's the problem with the bill as drafted that doesn't just allow legislative oversight of the
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
How much your problem, Mr. Chairman?
Now, he's asking a question.
Yes, sir.
He's good.
Well, I'm saying, let people have the right to speak. If he hear one side, he's doing both sides, let him have the right. I'm going to be here, I'm going to go against him. I'm going to be here. Let me have the right to speak.
Mr. Chairman, the point is, a lot of us heard a lot of this in the Coal and Energy Commission. What I want to do is try to refine his remarks to the implications of this legislation not what the DEQ plan should be, which is a lot of what you're getting to, is what the DEQ plan for the plants ought to be.
Sure.
Let's talk about
Yeah,
this legislation gets in the way.
I understand. I'll answer the question. Because HB 2291 does nothing but slow down economic development in clean energy. It basically gets in the way of the experts that are ready to write the state plan to reach that remaining 20% that we have to get to by 2030. And it impedes upon executive authority, and I feel like it sets a bad precedent that every time the General Assembly wants to get involved in where there's already pre-existing executive authority, I think it would set a bad precedent for both sides of the issue moving forward. For that reason, that's why I oppose this bill. And I would wager that most Virginians would agree with me because 2 in 1 Virginians support proceeding with the Clean Power Plan, and 83% of Virginians believe in proceeding with a Virginia-based state plan as well, according to
That may be true until they see their bill. But I'm just saying.
Sure. And to that question, the best modeling that we've seen, it does not involve shutting coal plants. It involves lowering energy bills by 2030 by about 8% due to investments in energy efficiency that Maryland has already done. And California, we keep hearing about it, they have lower bills than Virginia does because they've invested not in altering behavior, but in improving technology. It's technology investment. So, yeah, California does have lower average bills than Virginians.
We also have 70-degree weather here.
And there's technology to deal with the weather fluctuations in Virginia, and that's why this is a jobs bill.
And a 10% income tax rate.
Sure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Dr. Quinn, the administration, I'm Deputy Secretary, Natural Resources at the time, and the administration needs to oppose this bill respectfully. We have 3 real concerns with the bill.
Well, my problem with the administration is we've not heard anything from them on how they're going to react to the 111D, what they're going to do about it. Are they going to file suit? We just don't hear anything about it. So we have to act on our own. That's why I think Delegate O'Quinn brought the bill.
Well, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, the administration submitted a comment to the EPA that outlined our concerns with the current plan, and those are many concerns that we've heard shared among the legislature. Additionally, we wanted to wait until there was a final.
Maybe I should have said the AG.
Sure, and a separately elected office with whom we are friendly, but not identical. We have 3 real concerns with the bill. The first is a shifting of regulatory authority. The governor believes that he has the regulatory authority to meet the likely requirements of a final rule. If for some reason we don't, we'll come to the legislature. But our understanding of the rules that exist now, and as it's likely to exist, is that that's something that's already within the executive authority. With all due respect to the legislature, it's a policymaking body, not a regulatory body. It would take a great deal of time and energy were we to start to apply this standard to every regulation that comes down out of all of our different agencies. I don't think anybody here at the end of this long meeting would want to be in that world. Second, we're very concerned about the possibility of the failure of the state to generate an implementation plan. If for some reason the legislature cannot agree with DEQ and the administration on a state implementation plan, what we would get is a federal implementation plan. And neither the administration nor the members of this committee, I suspect, want anything to do with what EPA would write, were they given the option to write our implementation plan. Third and finally, this has a $250,000 fiscal impact. DEQ simply doesn't have the resources as it exists now, both in terms of personnel or financial resources, to meet the reporting requirements that are in this bill. We got to find that, and as it currently stands, we don't have it. So those are our 3 concerns, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Angela Navarro, the Southern Environmental Law Center. We oppose this bill. I'll be very brief in my comments. This is a basic separation of powers issue. The authority,
I wish they'd looked that up in Washington.
the authority to implement this regulation is vested in the Department of Environmental Quality, and we have a process that's already in place. And certainly we don't want this to be a precedent across the board that every executive agency that works on regulations has to submit that to the General Assembly for approval. That would make the process for home building, amongst other issues, incredibly tedious. So for those very reasons, we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, Chelsea Harnish, Virginia Conservation Network. For all of the reasons previously stated, we also oppose the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, my name is Karina Bell. I am representing Virginia Chapter of the Sierra Club. I would simply add to the comments from my colleagues earlier that this is a draft rule at this point. I have not seen the final language of the rule, and so I would just remind the subcommittee that having not seen that final rule, it may be premature to act on this motion. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. William Penham and I appeared before you earlier today. I want to make just a few limited points. First, as a